Learning a block Gemara. We are learning today the Gemara of Hoshana Rabbah Daf Kuf Chaf. We're still continuing B'nai Slavchad, and we discussed what kind of they were intelligent, they were intellectuals, plus they were tzidkanish and tzidkanius. And now the Gemara says here Daf Kuf Chaf, 4 lines into the wide lines, because the Torah, when they enumerated the daughters of Slavchad in one parsha in the story of Pinchas, when they complain, it's in one order. And then later on, the end of the Bamidbar, it's in another order. What's going on here? So the Gemara says here, Lahalan, 3 lines into the wide lines, the end of the line. Lahalan, Manakas of Derek. Later on, it talks about age, and therefore the order is one particular way. And the Khan, and over here, when they stood before Moshe Rabbeinu, is Derech Chachmasam. It goes according to how, when they came to Moshe Rabbeinu to discuss learning, it counts them according to their intellect, how smart they are. Yeah. So Machla is always first. So obviously the oldest was the smartest, but then the question is who's the next one? So there has Tirza and here has Noya, and so on. So we're up to that Kuf Chaf, we're 4 lines into the wide lines, and we're just discussing that the order of the B'nai Slavchad changes. When they come to learning is one particular order, it goes according to how smart they are. And when it comes to another, the Stam, we go according to the age. So we learn from here halacha. Misayeh LA, this actually supports Reb Ami. Said Bishiva, when it comes to learn in a place of discussing learning, that halech acha you should give more cover to someone who can learn better. We'll soon see when we mean chachma versus someone who's older. You have 2 people there. You have somebody who's old and somebody who is wise. Give more cover to one who's wise, and we'll soon see we're talking about a chacham muflik, not just wise but extraordinary, versus somebody who is very old. And nevertheless, a chacham muflik in a yeshiva, in a place of learning, that's where you give respect to that chacham muflik. But in Mesiba, when it comes to a mishta, a party, a wedding or something, then halech hachazikna, we go after age. Our Rashi says, "V'hu de maflik b'chachma, v'hu de maflik b'zikna." If somebody's extraordinarily smart and somebody's extraordinarily old, so it depends where. In an area where your focus is on learning, then you give cover to somebody who is a chacham or a muflik. And otherwise, you give a chacham to a zakah muflik. However, the Rashbam concludes, what about the non-muflogim and stam? Then Rashbam says, generally speaking, we always go after the zakah, as long as he's a little bit wise. And if the chacham's a little bit smarter, if he's young, he'll understand that it's not because we're insulting you, that it's partial age, have a respect, teach someone respect. They say, but talkum, but to Panezak and teach an older. Yeah, so it's so much versus extraordinary. Yeah. Another opinion disagrees with all of this. He said they're all equal. That's why they were all equal in the sometimes. Therefore, sometimes they have this order, sometimes that order. In other words, we only focus on the chachma. We don't look at age, because the chachamim wise they're all the same. So therefore, to show that sometimes go this way, sometimes go that way, which comes out according to this Tana, then this whole basis that we said that you should give more respect to age or chacham, we can't learn from there at all. They're all equal. Like Moshe and Aaron, who Moshe and Aaron, who Aaron and Moshe. Extraordinary. Even though because of them we had the whole problem about the transference of Yerusha, they were allowed to marry anybody they wanted. Shenema, as the pasuk actually says, that they should tell the Eden they should marry Latoiv b'aneim teyena. They can marry anybody they want. Latoiv b'aneim teyena l'nashim. Anybody they want. Elamai mekayim ha'is, as the pasuk says, ach lemishpachas mata avim teyena l'nashim. They should marry somebody in their own family. Eitz of Tevisin. For them, it's only an Eitz of Tevis. HaKosov. Shalai Yanasa Lahogilan. And why? They should only find someone appropriate. At the end of the day, they only married their own tribe. And we learned yesterday, they waited till 40 years old till they found the right Zivug. Moisav Rabba, so Rabba asked the question. It says in Pasik, Amoy Aleyem, speak to them. Them are the people who are there standing by Har Sinai. And then it says, L'doire seichem, to the future generations. Generally speaking, the Torah is being told to the people there and for future. Here it spells out, Amar Alein, which is Lo'ish Lo'inim al Hasinai, those are staying in Hasinai. And then it says, L'doire seichem, these are doiras, talking about somebody whose tummy shouldn't eat from kachim. And L'doire seichem, Eilu doiras haboyim. That's referring to the future generations. So if the fact of the Torah here says, tell them, and this applies to both, to the current people and to the future, we learn from it that kol mitzvahs is for both. Even never others, let me not bother, even never others. So what do you need both for? There's some mitzvahs. Why do you have to tell us that? Because there are some mitzvahs that only apply to the people in Midbar. And there are some mitzvahs that only apply to people when they come to Israel. So the future generations, obvious, Truma, Mises, and all of those things, like that only applies to when they come to Israel. What mitzvahs apply only to the others and not to the bonim? This is the mitzvah. By others, it says the generation leave in the midbar the whole bas yereshes nachla. That you have to marry your own shevet. However, this is only a very short term, as we'll soon see how we know that. And then after another generation, after the generation who left Mitzrayim, and they went into Israel, and they died. After the generation went into Israel, died. The next generation were allowed to marry anybody they wanted. Once you've established the boundaries of Israel, the Shvatim, you're allowed to marry anybody you want. How do we know that? We'll see in a minute. But the harben mitzvahs is others, but there were many mitzvahs given to the next generation, and just all the mitzvahs that didn't have previously. Had to say I had to say both to tell you that these other mitzvahs apply to everybody, and from there we equate every mitzvah in the Torah applies to everybody. Tani me, as we learned, but others who it says, I don't understand. It says in the pasuk, how did it become? So first of all, my question is, it says the whole bas. It sounds like also the daughters of Slavchad are included. So the whole bas, every daughter Yeresh Nachla, any daughter who's going to inherit Nachla, make sure you only marry from your own and below Sisay. So when he come in, I said the Bnei Slavchad will allow to marry anybody they wanted. Rabbi asked the question. He asked it. He answered himself. Levad Bnei Slavchad. They're an Uistam. They're an exception. How do we know that this Issa didn't apply anymore? How did Chazal come along and say, okay, you can marry anybody you want? Amar Rava, Amar Krok, the Pasuk says, Zeh Hadover. When it introduces this whole thing of Nachlas, it says, Zeh Hadover Asher Tziv Hashem. What means Zeh? What's the word Zeh? Obviously, just say, tell us the mitzvahs like every other mitzvah. Why Zeh Hadover? As it says, Zeh, only now. Dover Zeh only applies to this doy. So that's what you tell me. Every time it says Zeh Hadover, it means only applies then. I'll find you another mitzvah where it says, or Isra, it says Zeh, and you tell me it only applies then. For example, interesting name, Rabba and Zuti. Make up your mind. Yeah.
Compared to the regular Rabba.
Okay. Rabba Zuti Ravashi. There we had a mice. Rabba had the Shech Rab Zayda, the small one, and here you have one person who incorporated both miles. Oh. Did you ever come across him? I can't remember. Ever came across his name before? Rabba Zuti. Sorry, I know, but it's a name. There's a more description.
They use that too.
Nickname
between the regular Rabba.
But this is Ravashi. It's obvious it's not the same Rabba. Yeah, a number of days later. Ravashi was born when Rabba passed away, and Rabba was a Talmud of Rabba. Rabba Ravashi El Matter when it is Zeh Hadover. You're going to tell me that shechting an animal outside of the base of Migdash, you get chorus. Are you going to tell me it only applies to that generation that enters Israel? No, there's different, because in that very pasuk it says, says the chukas olam the doiraisa. The Torah clearly says the doiraisa, which we said before. Doiraisa means future generations. Okay, says the Gemara. What about Zehadavar the Rosh Matas when it introduces in Parshas Matas the laws of Nedarim? It says there Zehadavar, like this. Where you tell the Rosh Matas that Zehadavar Shiv Hashem. These are the rules. You can tell me the laws of Nedarim and annulments and all that kind of stuff is only applicable in that generation. Only applied in that day. I'm like, who Yaliv says that? No, once we know that chut, even though it says Zeh, it's for future generations as well. We make an equation, that also the dinim of the Darim applies in future generations as well. Says the Gemara, you tell me we have a Gzeder Shava Zeh to tell you that applies to generations. So let's say the same thing of the Nachlis. Says Zeh Hadover, But make a Gzera Shava says that. Well, that applies to future generation. You're not allowed to marry somebody else, another Shevet. I nami leilu zezeh mahasam. What are you comparing? The Gzera Shava zezeh between Shchuti Chutz and Rosh Matas by Nadorim is needed for other dinim. And once we've established that the Gzera Shava is for other dinim, and we have a rule, you can't make Gzera Shava halfway, you half measures. So whatever you hear is same there. Since there's no dinim that we're going to learn out from the fact that one Shevet cannot marry another Shevet, other than this one din for a few generations, then it's not part of the Gzera Shava. What other dinim we learn from each other? The Gemara will explain that right now. They need the Gzera Shava between Shchuti Chutz and Nedarim. You don't need it all. If the Torah meant that comes you're not allowed to marry each other forevermore, why say Zahadava? All mitzvahs are forevermore. My Gzera Shava, what do you tell me we need the Gzera Shava between Shchuti Chutz and Nedarim? What do we learn after that? Time we learn Nemakan Zahadava. Here it says Zahadava. The Nema Lahalan, and it says over there Zahadava. It says over here by Nedarim Zahadava. It says by Shchuti Chutz Zahadava. Ma Lahalan, just like over there, when it came to Shchuti Chutz, introduces the whole din the following way. Aaron, he says, speak to Aaron, speak to Bonav, and speak to Chol Yisrael. Avkan, so too, when it comes to Nadarim, we learn now that Aaron of Bonav and Chol Yisrael, you don't need Dafka the Rosh Matas, because the laws of Nadarim was said to the chiefs of all the tribes. So maybe you would have thought, wait, he needs a chief of a tribe, a mumche. Nope. Even an ordinary 3 people can also annul Nadarim. Where do you know that from? From Shchuti Chutz, it says Aaron of Bonav and Chol Yisrael. Anybody's qualified. So what do you Makan Rosh Matas? And just like over here, Rosh Matas works by Nedarim. What do you call it? We'll soon see what that means. Is also by Shchuti Chutz. Is also Rosh Matas. What does that mean? We'll see in a minute. What do you mean? What are you trying to tell me? So like I just told you, to annul Nedarim, Shloisha head gaitis, 3 head gaitis are good enough. What exactly the definition of a hedjit is a big machlek. That means like gomid v'loy savi. He doesn't have to learn it all. Be a total amoritz, but as long as savi can understand, or does he have to learn a little bit? It's not a baki b'shas. He's not a big baki. Exactly. Machlek is showing there. The Gemara, Rashi Matzis. It says Rashi Matzis, but it says clearly the pasuk Rashi Matzis. So Gzera Shava Heg Gzera Shava Him, but the Gzera Shava is not going to overturn what it says the usurper says in the Torah. No, sometimes Rashi Matas, sometimes Gimel Hadjetis. What do you mean? Rashi Matas is if you want to do it on your own, as long as you're a Rosh Matzah, a Yachid Mumcha, you can. What exactly the definition of a Yachid Mumcha? Interesting that Rabbi Rashbam learns here, Yachid Mumcha means you're Baki B'Talmud. Other Rishonim learn a Yachid Mumcha means you have Smicha. You don't have to be a Baki B'Talmud. You have to be. You have to have Smicha. He says, sorry, Baki b'Gemara. Okay, you're Baki in the Gemara. You have to be a Baki b'Shas, basically, according to the Rashbam. According to others, it's just that you have to have smicha. It says in plural, Roshei. Roshei means in general, you're talking to the community. One of your Roshim doesn't mean more than one Rosh. How do you know you need 3 hadjot? Maybe only 2. So one opinion is that because it says Roshei Hamatas, Roshei, not from the word matas, but the Roshei is plural, so that tells you 2, and make 3. Others say, we're talking about Roshei Matas is for Yachid Mumcha, nothing to do with it. So they learn, no, but perhaps you need more than Mumcha, so you need 2, and the Svara says you always have to have 3. Big this idea of 3 people annulling a neder, is that a din in Bezdin? Or is it not to do the Bezdin? 3 people. One not community on Shabbos. Can you annul Nedarim on Shabbos? We don't set up a Bezdin on Shabbos. If it's any Bezdin, you can't. If it's not, you could. And so on. A lot rather than have community halacha. How do we understand the idea of 3? And okay. Then it says, now you also said the other thing is Makan Roshi Matas, Roshi Matas, Aflahalun, so too by Shchuti Chutz is Roshi Matas. Where does Roshi Matas fit into Shchuti Chutz? What's the Gzera Shava? To tell you that is an extraordinary thing. To teach you an extraordinary thing, and that is, you did Shchuti Chutz, you chayiv kares. You can still go to a Rav and be mat to a mumcha to be matin and say, oh, I never should have made this animal a carbon. And the mafreya, retrospectively, was never a carbon, and you're not 5 carbs. So then, in that case, which person would do this? I mean, but anyway, you learn that Shiloh, and that's where Rosh Matas comes in. That's where Rosh Matas comes in. No, we learn from the Darim. It's not the word Rosh Matas learning here. We mean from the Sugi of the Darim that you can annul your neder. You can also annul Hegdish. You also know, Machlekes, once, by let's say you made Hegdish, you made Truman, you already gave it to the Kohen. It's one thing you didn't give it to the Kohen, you can still annul it. And Rashbam said also Mises. But what happened? You already gave it to the Kohen. Can you still undo it or Fafal? Machlekes is trying with that. The Sham holds that what? That Hegdish, once you said it, it's over. The Sham said Hegdish toys, Hegdish, even if you made a mistake, you said the first black thing that comes out of my house and something white came out. And you still chayiv a korban of because once you because in other words, because he would have said if I would have known white would come out, I would have thought white should become hegdish. So he holds that a toss is hegdish. And surely, if you made it willingly and then you want to change your mind, surely you can. Madach, with the whole thing was based on an error. Still, we said, well, that it's hegdish. Surely, according to Beis Shammai, if you shas ma'isi, you meant it. Now later you change your mind. Surely you can't. Is a high the what does he do that for? You can't undo the shchutichutz. So what is he learning from the Darim to shchutichutz? He needs, you know what? We know that when the bird activity in the Beis Hamikdash was different than all other animals. Instead of an ordinary knife, they used their nail, the thumbnail to cut the bird. But if you take a bird outside of the Beis Hamikdash, when are you chayiv? Only if you did shchita, not if you did malika. And so therefore, it's no gzeh shava. He uses zeh hadover, not no gzeh shava. Zeh hadover means exactly this way. Because the pasuk says if you shecht, right? It says over there if you shecht it outside. He says zeh hadover. Only if you did follow what I just said, shechting. I'll show you the chayiv al malika. So okay, so Zeh Hadova, now that you're not using Zeh Shava, what does he do with Zeh Hadova, the Rosh Matas? What does he do with Zeh Hadova, Rosh Matas? What is Zeh Hadova? You have to do it precisely this way. The Boile Lechochem Mativ ain't Baal Mativ. Baal Mefer Chochem Mefer. A Chochem, generally, the Machlei Hashem had a limshat. I'll just tell you how the Rambam Moshe Hashem learned. The difference, a husband has the right, once he heard the neder that she made, if it affects the relationship, he has 24 hours or he has till the next day to unravel this neder. What he does is hafara. And we had in the Durham a whole question there. What is exactly the husband's role? Is he unraveling it or is he making his guy? He's cutting it. From now on, it's no longer a neder, or it's like mafreh. So we say make his guy. That means from now on. So the precise word for a husband is mefer. Mefer means break it. I don't need to know you have charata. I don't want you to have this neder from now on. So it's mefer. If the matzah means because when you want to be matzah neder, I can't just say okay, your neder is null and void. You have to say in these circumstances, had I known this, I have charata. There's charata. There's a betas. So no, what we're saying is that the whole neder from the outset should never have happened. L'mafreya, we say it should never have happened in the first place. So the word there is matzah. The word is matzah. But if the husband uses the word matzah, it's no good. If the chacham uses the word mefer, it's no good. It's the wrong word. Because the chacham is not being mefer. He has no right to break the neder. He can only unravel the net as if it never existed in the first place. You have to use matzah. That's where you learn the word zeh hadover. You have to follow the rules by the exact same way. Well, the Shammai, the lesson say it doesn't hold a Geshavah. How far the Dorim? How does he know how far the Dorim? Had 30 people. It says Rosh Matas. Maybe only Mumchim can do it. Now, if Tanya, he learned from the following. Like it says the part of this. Vaydaber Moshe Moed Hashem b'nei Yisrael. Moshe ben spoke to Moed Hashem. Right? Rabbi Yesi Haglui. Basically says the following, the most cryptic brayse. Moyadeh Hashem Nemru. It says here Moyadeh Hashem. Shabbos Breishis Loy Nemru. The first Shabbos coming up this week. Loy Nemra wasn't said. What does that mean? We'll see in a minute. Ben Azayimir, Moyadeh Hashem Nemru, Moyadeh Hashem said, but Hafaras Nedori Loy Nemru. But on the breaking of the neder, a nomen of the neder wasn't said here. What's going on here? So the Gemara says that Rabbi Yesi Bar Nosson, having Gomir Lo Lahav Masnita, he learned his brayse, but Lo Yod Lo Frushi, he couldn't understand what the brayse is trying to say. Also, Based Rav Sheish Ladai, went to Rav Sheish Ladai, He couldn't find it. So then Ozel Basa, he went travel over to Mechuzah just to understand Pshat in his Braisa. Ashke, he found it there. Amalei, my Moed Hashem, tell me Pshat in the Braisa. What do you mean? Moed Hashem Nemru, Shabbat Breishis Nemru. Yom Tov was said and not Shabbat Breishis. So Shesha said, Amalei, I'll tell you what the Braisa meant. Moed Hashem Tzichin Kiddush Bezi. The Yom Tovim of Hashem require Kiddush of Bezdin. Bezdin has to decide. What did Bezdin have to decide? Interesting machlekes of Shainim. Most Shainim learn they decide the Chodesh, and once you decide the Chodesh, then whatever the 10th day of Tishrei automatically is Yom Kippur. There are some of the Shainim say no, that Moshe Rabbeinu was actually Mekadesh not just the Rosh Chodesh, but each Yom Tov, you're Mekadesh. And Shabbat Bereishis ain't a Tzich Kiddush Bezdin. It happens order. We had Abrit Sachim. We catch him in Meiler. Sometimes I would have thought, since it says Sheitzes Yom Tasim Locha, Tiboy Kiddush Bezdin, Kim Moedas, you would have, since it says Elim Moyadei, and then it talks to you about Shabbos, right? It says that Sheitzes Yom and and so on and so forth. On Yom HaShvi, Shabbos. So I would have thought that since we're talking about Shabbos as well, it should be included. Kamash Malon, which I'm telling you that no. The real version of gone. He says, so what's like a Pshat? But it says in the Pasuk Shabbos. So it should be included maybe that in the Elam Moed Hashem. If you're saying that's what we learn now that you have to make Kaddish, especially according to those who say that and they learn from this Pasuk. By Dab Moshe's Moed Hashem, he said the Moedim. He had to make Kaddish the Moedim, so maybe I have to make Kaddish Shabbos as well. So he said the Gemara's Kamashal is it's not talking about Shabbos. There are 7 days Yom Tov in the year. There's 2 days Pesach, 2 days Sukkot, 1 day Shavuos, 1 day Rosh Hashanah, and 1 day Yom Kippur. 6 out of those 7 you're allowed to do Melechas Echel Nefesh, and 1 of them you can. So Sheish is Yomim. 6 of those 7 days Yom Tov is Tas Melachah do Melechas Echel Nefesh. The Yom Hashi Shabbos, and that's Yom Kippur. You can. So it's not talking about Shabbos at all, and that's what the Gemara means Kamash Malon. Not talking about Shabbos at all. Anyway, so what's the second part of the Brisa? My Moed Hashem Nemra Fazadon Nemra Moed Hashem. That they talk about Moed Hashem and not talk about a normal Adorim. Moed Hashem Tzichin Mumchin. To be Mekadesh the Chodesh, you need like Moshe and Aaron. You need experts. Aber Hafaras Nadorim ain't not Simcha Mumchin. Because even when the Adam came and testified by the moon, you had all these charts over there, and they had to see, whether it marries up with the charts. You had to be a Mumcha. Mashain Kain have forest Nadarim, you can have it Yates. And that's where Beis Shammai learned that you don't need Mumchin by a nom of Nadarim. Same question before. Said, pause for 1 minute.